a good Tuesday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this Tuesday night, this 14th day of January. We are officially 6 days away from the end of the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden nightmare. And we are just so grateful to have the one and only, making her 2025 debut. It will not be her last debut. She is a vital part of this network. She is my goddaughter, and she's going to play a big, big role this year in the McFiles. And it's good to have Magdalene Rose, the Rose Report, and my dear, dear, dear goddaughter. I call her that. She knows I do that with all the love. Good to see you, kid. How are you tonight? I'm really grateful to see you tonight. I tell you, we've had a lot go on, and I'm just grateful to have you on the show tonight. What's going on with you?
Not much. Thank you for having me on.
Well, you're always welcome here. And, you know, at this rate, being my kids are ashamed of me, you'll probably be being the replacement host for me when they put me in my nursing home, okay? So just be practicing. What you're doing, you're, what do you call it, auditioning? You're auditioning to take over. And we are going to work something out when I'm not able to do the show. Maybe we'll get Magdalene Talker into being a fill-in host for us. We're going to try to do that this year a little bit more. Listen, buddy, it's so good to see you. I want to talk to you. First of all, before we get all the Pete Hegsteth stuff out, I do want to get your take on the fires in California. I know there's a lot of things that are going on with the leadership there, but I'm just curious what your thoughts were just personally about it. It's a pretty serious situation, and what's your thoughts on all this stuff? It's pretty sad to see the carnage out there, but it's mind-blowing, Magdalene, the absolute lack of leadership and the malfeasance of what Newsom and Karen Bass are doing. And I tell you, these liberals are turning on them pretty bad. I've never seen anything like this with liberals. I think liberals are waking up, and I think this fire is shaking people up. But what's your take on that tonight?
Well, I think it was very much avoidable, and what's so sick and twisted about it is that Gavin Newsom pretends to be this governor who's making sure people are okay and filling in all the gaps, and he doesn't do any of that. And just to put it in reference, the mayor of LA, when she was running for mayor, pledged that she wasn't going to do a lot of international travel, that she would be focused on LA. What kind of culture is there in LA where that candidate has to pledge not to do international travel? And she has to pledge to stay in the place that she's running to represent.
Good point.
That's the kind of person we're dealing with. So I'm not surprised by the DEI issues that caused gaps in funding within the fire departments. What is surprising is that we didn't know necessarily that was happening. There might have been stories, but the conservative media world hadn't latched onto it. So a lot of people are surprised by it. And I think one of the things that will come from this is that Gavin Newsom, he really has to be kicked out of that position. There's got to be some accountability. I think it's him very much like Justin Trudeau, who's of course now resigning, will no longer be Prime Minister of Canada. He came in as this suave, like good-looking, trying to participate, liberal future icon, and has failed. So I think with Trudeau out, it's a good indicator of what's going to happen to Newsom long term.
Have you, in your young life, seen anything quite on this scale as far as the disaster goes? What do you liken this to as your age group? Let me rephrase that question a little bit. As the 20-year-olds out there look at this, and y'all see this carnage, what are you hearing from your kids of your age, and how are they receiving all this? Do they look at this in terms maybe as being very serious? Do they, just think it's another forest fire? But how deep does this run in the hearts of these kids? Because Magdalene, one day, the 20-year-olds are going to own homes, and this could be them. This could be them down the road, and I hope this is waking them up that leadership matters. When these things happen, who you have over you matters a lot.
Yeah, and I think one of the things they've noticed is that there's still at this point, even though California's been dealing with wildfires pretty much since the beginning of California, there still doesn't seem to be an effort to really fortify homes. And that's what I've been hearing is, why is there no investment in technology? Why is there no investment in different water systems? Why are people not trying to fix things on that level? Why is it still this kind of situation where we just hope it doesn't happen? We hope the Santa Ana winds don't burn us down. That is a really sad and despicable thing for the government of California to be pushing. And just to contrast this with someone like Governor DeSantis, who holds no more power or no less power than Gavin Newsom does. When there are hurricanes, DeSantis fortifies that state. He locks it down. He creates a system where not only can things be rebuilt, but things are stopped in their tracks from getting worse to the best that he can, which is why in past hurricanes, there's been even though there's great structural damage, on a sort of government level, things run very well. He has tried desperately to help Gavin Newsom understand how to do this. And Gavin Newsom has rejected him at every turn. They had a debate that Hannity hosted. DeSantis has tried to make it better for the people of California. Newsom has rejected him. And this is sort of what we see when we see somebody like Gavin Newsom who has no idea on a management level how to keep California safe.
Yeah, I think that's well said, kid. Do you have any family out there, anybody that you know that's been affected by these fires?
Yeah, there are people in those areas, and a lot of shows in the conservative world are anchored out of California. A lot of people I deal with in media have shows that are on the West Coast and there. And I think that there's been a frustration in that people in California, Republicans, had been talking about the cutting of resources to fire departments, and not only fire departments, but other essential departments within that state, and the prioritization of DEI programs and hires over that. And a lot of times people didn't really want to discuss it. They felt like it kind of was falling on deaf ears. And now look what's happened. And I've heard people talk about, possibly attaching strings to more than anything more than just the basic aid for California. And a lot of people might be frustrated by that. But how as a country can we really justify the people in North Carolina still sitting there suffering, and we're going to give all the money to California to rebuild? At some point, there's got to be a level of equality.
I'm glad you asked that question, because that came up tonight on some of the talk shows, and Tommy Tuberville, who actually is, I like Tommy. Anybody that took Jeff Sessions down, I'd be happy with. But he made some great points tonight, and they're already demonizing the Republicans a little bit and conservatives, because there is a feeling among conservatives, and I think President Trump has indicated this, and some of his cabinet members are telling California, we're not going to write you a blank check and let you keep mismanaging this money. Look, they lost $50 million, Magdalene, in COVID funds back in 2020. They can't even account for it. They're spending billions of dollars on trying to protect a Snell dart. And then they're going to put their hands out to the country. And I hate to sound so cold about this tonight, but, look, we feel for the people of California. I know that there's a great outpouring of support financially for people right now. But when it comes to the federal government, if I'm Trump, there's strings that's going to be attached to this money, and they're going to have to give an account for what they do. And if they don't fix this problem to prevent another situation like this happening, I don't give you a dime. I mean, I know that sounds pretty callous, but I think that it's necessary right now, because it's not the country's job to bail out California to keep wasting money, and then this happen again, and we're faced with this 3 years from now, 5 years from now, when this happens again, and you've got the same corrupt leadership over the money. That's not being too hard, is it?
No, it's not. And I think that there is a feeling that this state has made it very difficult to trust the leadership in it. This state has made it very difficult to want to help. And if it was a state like Ohio, look, it could be a liberal state with great management, or a more independent state like Maine. But California has not done a good job of endearing itself to the American people generally. And I really question whether or not that will ever change under Newsom and anyone affiliated with Newsom. Yeah,
I'm with you there. Let's turn to Pete Hegsteth today. Did you get to watch any of the hearings with him today?
I did, and I think that the thing to take away from the Pete Hegseth hearings is, first of all, they're starting with the easiest guy to attack in Pete Hegseth. They're seeing him and they're saying, we can go after him for his personal issues and other issues. He's the easiest guy to hit. Marco Rubio will not be so easy.
That's true. I think he handled himself pretty well today. I would give him an A+. I don't even give him an A-. I think that he held his cool, and we got some clips coming up after you. I mean, I don't think the Dems laid a hand on him today. And this slanderous attack on his character, It made them look petty. It made them look like a bunch of sleazy porn stars. It really made them look like a bunch of dirtbags to me, because they were not up there to do a character test. Because if they're going to do a character test, I like what Jesse Walter says. If infidelity is going to be the test whether you can be in a government office, you ain't going to fill the front row of a 2-chair table in Congress to basically remove people that don't have character issues. There ain't none of them up there that don't. And they brought the drunkenness up and all these allegations, these baseless, slanderous allegations that people just love to slur out there. And it's just, this nation is so steeped in it. And you know, Magdalene, there are good people in this country, young people in this country, that I believe could help this country a lot. There's older people that could help this country. Look, I've even given thought sometimes to maybe getting, involved in the political situation. Then I think about it. Do I want to put my family through this sordid National Enquirer, tawdry, digging up dirt from your high school years, going back, looking under every orifice you've got just to qualify to basically help the country? Most people don't want to do it. And Pete Hegsteth deserves a lot of credit tonight because he remained cool. He did not render evil for evil. I felt he handled himself with class as compared to the classless blanks that the Democrats showed themselves to be today. That's my take on it. What's yours?
I think that's true. And let's talk for a minute about Tim Kaine, who is not even the most recent Tim to lose the vice presidency. That's how little this man has mattered to the American people. He was a disgrace in that hearing. He opened it up with attacks on his children. Even Mazie Hirono didn't bring up his kids.
That's right.
Even Elizabeth Warren wouldn't have done that. And they believe he's a rapist who should be imprisoned. So for Tim Kaine to do that, he did it in a mean, snide way. And you could tell Pete was surprised that, that's what they were opening with. If they just called him a war criminal, I think that would have been less surprising, honestly. But Tim Kaine did that because Tim Kaine is completely unremarkable in every way. And that frustrates Tim Kaine. It frustrates him that people see it and know the truth of it. And I think in general, Pete did great in the hearings. I think Republicans were helpful to him. And it makes me sad that the women on that panel, with the somewhat exception of Joni Ernst, all they asked were about issues relating to women. All they asked was about women serving in combat. And that interview they keep referencing, I watched that whole interview. It's a fascinating take that Pete has. He talks about the standards and what it really takes to be in battle and why it can change the dynamics of the unit if a woman is in active combat duty. It's a very nuanced interview. I encourage people to watch it. And all women talked about on that panel were women's issues. They didn't discuss anything when it came to Afghanistan. It didn't make women look smart in politics. And I think it was an unfortunate thing to see.
Let me ask you a question, personal question, just me to you. Would you feel comfortable in a battlefield situation being handed a gun as a woman? You're a young lady, okay? And look, this is not a sexist comment, Magdalene, but this is how I feel about it. The man is the stronger vessel. I don't care what these women liberals try to convince the society. The man is destined to be on that battlefield. I do not believe, and this is just an opinion, that is the place for a woman. And there's several reasons for that. But I'm just asking you, would it, if you were called into that place, how would you see yourself as being out of place there? I mean, I know, and that's a weird question. I'm not trying. It's not a gotcha question. I mean, that's a serious question because, see, I don't have no problem if a woman wants to put herself out there. But I'm going to tell you what I've got a problem with is how the Dems phrase this and frame this, that if a man feels comfortable in a trench hole when life or death goes and you got a woman beside him that don't know how to do a gun and don't know how to shoot a gun, people get killed. And that's sort of what Pete is saying. It's about qualifications. He don't care whether you're male or female. But if you got females out there getting in the way and getting men killed, it's time to get the females off the ground because we're fighting wars here. We're not fighting tiddlywinks and playing Monopoly. This is people's lives. It goes back to the police force and other things. And again, I know there's going to be some moron out there that's going to say, well, McDonald's just being sexist and he's just being ugly to women. No, it has nothing to do with that. it's very serious because, see, this is the woke atmosphere that we've had in the military and the Pentagon for at least 4 years now. But you go back to Obama, it started with him. And that is really where I took away from Pete Hegsteth tonight. He's basically putting the Pentagon on notice. This crap is going to stop. And we're going to have a fighting machine that if we're called to defend this country, we're going to have people on the field, Magdalene, that's going to defend this country. I'm not screaming at you. I'm screaming at the camera. But you know where I'm coming from with this. What's your thoughts on that?
I think if women can pass the same exact standards to be Navy SEALs and to be Marines, great. That's not something I want or I understand the desire for. But if those standards can be upheld and there's not gender neutrality in it, it really is the same things. Good for them, do it. But I think the type of woman that can do that is very different. She's the exception, not the rule.
That's exactly right.
Of women in general. And I don't think Pete Hegseth is against that.
No.
But I think he is living in reality. And the reality is, since Obama, and this is just the truth, there's been an effort to bring in women to the military, and they have greatly lowered the standards. And it has affected us on all levels. And
look, that's my point. If the standard is lowered to get women in the military, you are putting people's lives in danger. It would be just like the police force bringing a woman on that don't know how to shoot a gun. But because we want to meet a gender quota, we're going to let her go out there and fight crime in the streets, even though she don't know what she's doing, because it would be the same thing if they let a man do it. Magdalene, I'd feel the same way. But if the standard is met, I don't care what gender they are, if they can handle themselves. But what I do care about is this quota-based DEI woke bullshit that we have delved into for nearly 8 years now, and this crap idea that, again, that women are on an equal playing field with men when it comes to these things. They're not. They're not.
No, they're not.
And when you start lowering your standards to meet quotas, people get killed and people die. And I think that's what Pete is ultimately trying to say. And I think it's the most wisest thing I've heard. We're going to play a clip. And, you know, he's like, look, you know, this is about defending life. This is about defending our country. This ain't about being diverse and equitable. I love what he said. He said, we're going to be equal in how we handle people, but we're not going to be equitable. And I love what he said, because that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, it has been. And I think one of the things that frustrated Trump was he could never really get an understanding of how bad it was in the military, because his defense secretaries and the Defense Department were sabotaging him constantly. So he was never able to really see. I mean, he knew it was there, but he didn't know the details of it. He was so busy with everything else, in the economy especially, and ISIS, that the inner workings of the Pentagon, he could never really get a good beat on it. He needs someone like Pete Hegseth, and I know people have said that it's a problem that he doesn't have all the answers to every little foreign policy question. Okay, Lloyd Austin has presided over the burning down of the world.
Come on, bud.
And has never really been held accountable. Lloyd Austin has been one of the most ineffective, failed members of cabinet in history, second only to our current Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who, when he leaves, I will cheer, because that man has presided over the fall of Afghanistan, the invasion of Ukraine, and the Middle East being on fire. So I'm sorry, Pete Hegseth not knowing a few specific nuanced policy questions from Mazie Hirono, a person who's contributed nothing in politics and is only a detriment to her party, it doesn't shake my confidence in his nomination.
No, I'm with you. I think you're so wise beyond your years, as you always are. But I think we're going to be both rejoicing. We're going to hear each other screaming where we're at in the country tonight. And I'm with you 1,000,000% there. Let me ask you a question. Going forward, look like Hegsteth solidified himself. The Ernst tonight announced she's going to vote for him. That was a big holdout, and that's big to me. I think he's going to pass with flying colors, and wouldn't be surprised if Fetterman and maybe a few moderate Dems have said to crap with this left-wing loom bomb stuff. We're going to go and do the right thing. But of all the nominations, I'll ask you what I asked James R. last night. Who is the one that you feel like is going to have the worst shake of it? Now, he felt Hegsteth was going to have the hardest time, and I think Hegsteth passed with flying colors today. But who do you see maybe having some roadblocks ahead in this process, if anybody?
Well, I I think Hegseth is okay. I think Hegseth is a very nuanced person. He really understood that the lines, especially between men and women in the military, blur because men are trying to keep women safe. He understood a lot of nuanced things. He's also endearing. Pete Hegseth is an endearing person. You don't hate him when you look at him. And I think that's been difficult for Democrats to get past. Honestly, the reporting shows that Tulsi Gabbard has struggled the most in these private meetings with senators, both on the Democrat and Republican side. She's had to, since it's revealed that she's the nominee, change many more of her positions than anybody else has. And I think in general, she's not as strong as she seemed on the campaign trail. And you and I have spoken about this for years. Tulsi Gabbard may be a great speaker for Trump. She may have been great at rallying some moderates and independents, libertarians to his side. But we have no actual proof that she's going to be really competent at that job of being director of national intelligence. And I think that she's going to have an upward battle, especially because now Syria has fallen. And there was a question of Assad's influence while he's in Russia, what him and Putin are discussing together. Tulsi Gabbard also does not actually belong to the Republican Party. And there is something to be said for Republicans sticking with Republicans. You saw the righteous indignation on the faces of Republicans on that panel when they were attacking Pete Hegseth, especially when they were attacking his faith. Because he's one of us. He is a Republican. Tulsi Gabbard is partyless. So I don't think people rise to her defense in the same almost tribal way because she's not a Republican, but Pete Hegseth is. The exception to that is RFK Jr. He's like some strange political celebrity that floats out there in the middle. The Democrats are kind of afraid to mess with because he is a Kennedy, so there's some mystique there. But Tulsi Gabbard is partyless, and when you need a party line vote to get confirmed, that's a difficult hill to climb.
That's a super point, kid. And I think that is so well said. James Warren's no fan of Tulsi. I ain't either. He was in Hawaii for many years, and she was, of course, their rep out there. And he knows some things behind the scenes, and he's never ever been a fan of Tulsi Gabbard. But I'm with you, and I think that's wisdom because you're right. She has no party, and the Republicans, and I did see that in some of the hearings today. The Republicans, I was proud of them. They did not let the Democrats do this crap, and they circled the wagon with Pete. And I don't see them doing that with her. Do you think RFK gets through? I heard tonight Lindsey Graham's going to say no to him, and I don't understand why Lindsey would vote no because I don't see anything with RFK Jr. that should scare people. Look, I'm pro-life. I get the pro-choice, the abortion issue, and some of these other issues, but Trump, for whatever reason, picked him, and Trump believes he can do a good job. I guess everything remains to be seen because there's no guarantee any of these cabinet members, Magdalene, we went through this with every administration. You put people up to be nominated. They come in guns a-blazing, and a few months, it turns out we made a bad screw-up, And that happens in politics. It happens in business. It happens with everything. It happens in life. You make a choice. You make a call. Sometimes the call don't work out. Sometimes it does. So it's going time will tell with all of these people. But I found it interesting that Lindsey was a no to him, and I don't understand exactly why. Because Lindsey Graham ain't rabid pro-life. I mean, it's certainly at the abortion issue. It makes you wonder what it is.
Well, I think what it is that he doesn't like RFK's stance. I think that he, in general, has been bought off by a lot of companies, and he doesn't think RFK will support him in his efforts for self-enrichment. I mean, Lindsey Graham has been a problem for a long time. He has stood by while bad things have happened to good Republicans. He's made his choices. I don't know where he was during the 2024 election, but I never saw him, or Ted Cruz, although Ted Cruz was running a very difficult campaign, I believe. But where was he? How exactly was he helping? Tim Scott was out there helping his co-senator, his other senator from South Carolina. He was rallying from the beginning. He was in contention for VP. So it's not an issue with the state. So where was Lindsey Graham? I think Lindsey Graham has a lot of interests within the pharmaceutical areas. I think there's a lot of that. And I think the other side of this for RFK Jr. is that he is sort of a wild card, and he knows that. He doesn't have this belief that he will be definitely confirmed in the way others do. He knows he's a Trump wild card. Tulsi Gabbard, for a very long time, has pushed Republicans into thinking that she is this great mind. I don't think that's true. I think that she could be somewhat competent. I'm not worried about her as Director of National Intelligence, but remember, we voted for a Republican president because we wanted Republicans in positions of power. She's not a Republican, and she's for red flag gun laws. So if her nomination goes down in flames, I feel confident Trump will then pick an actual Republican for that seat.
Who's the strongest candidate that he's got in this cabinet? Who gives you the most confidence looking at the cabinet?
Oh, Marco Rubio, without a doubt. Marco Rubio is the person we need because we have a situation with Venezuelan gangs and the issues in Latin America. And not because Marco Rubio is Hispanic, but because he understands the inner workings of these dictatorships, because he understands the cultural pushes, the culture of silence that emerged from Cuba and how it's expanded to other countries under dictatorships. He is somebody who is well-versed in world affairs. He also has dignity. And to be Secretary of State, you must possess dignity. It's why Hillary Clinton, among other reasons, failed. She's a dignity-less person. She has no ability to see the nuance. She's sloppy. And the same thing with Rex Tillerson and Antony Blinken. I just don't understand what this man's been doing for 4 years. So Marco Rubio, if he is in power, will be able to negotiate for the United States. And also he possesses a very important factor. He doesn't need to be in the news. He can be quiet and get things done. I think that when he goes to visit the princes and the ruling families in Saudi Arabia, he'll be just as respected as when he is in France talking to Macron.
So that's well said. And I'm with Pam Bondi. I think Pam Bondi is going to be a solid choice. And I like Kash Patel over the FBI. I think they need to fire everybody when they show up on day one, and I've been hearing some very encouraging things. Hey, I've got you about 10 more minutes, 15 or so. I do want to ask you a question, and this is a question I'm not sure me and you have discussed yet, but I want to ask you this. I get a mixed bag when I bring this up about Trump dealing with the past a little bit and investigating some of these lawfare things that have come against him with these judges, the J6 situation, even the COVID stuff that was swept under the rug 4 years ago. Does Trump benefit from dealing with these things and investigating them or moving forward and let's just move on and say, kumbaya, wrap it up and it's okay? I'm going to tell you my opinion. I do not believe we can go forward until we get to the bottom of a lot of these things that basically crippled the country, Magdalene, over the last 6 to 8 years. And I'm telling you, I think that there needs to be a house cleaning and there needs to be some accountability for what people was done to them on J6. There needs to be accountability for these things that happened with Planned Parenthood, these mamas that were arrested for just simply praying, this corrupt Department of Justice. And you know, it's interesting tonight, the J6 committee, they're basically begging Biden to give them a preemptive pardon. And even Adam Kinzinger, who is on that committee, was seen in 22 basically saying, well, why would you ask for a pardon unless you did something criminally wrong? Duh. Duh. Every one of them need to be in jail. I'm just curious how you feel about that, because I personally don't think we can go forward until we hold people accountable for what they've done to this country and to President Trump, and you know something, to the American people as well. Because we've been through hell in this country for 4 years, them doing this stuff to people.
Well, I think the best thing we can start with is figuring out what is going on at the FBI. And not only figuring out at the top, but we need to understand what kind of people they're recruiting. I want a breakdown of the political ideologies of every freshman class that comes through Quantico, because we need to understand who these federal agents that are given all this power to terrorize people really are on the inside, because that has been something that has really hurt us. And I always hear from Hannity, the rank and file of the FBI are good people. How do we know that? Like, really, how do we know that? I'm sure some are, but how, in general, do we know that they're good people? If they're the people that break down the doors and search people and terrorize people and make people afraid to go to rallies to protest abortion clinics, how do we know they're the good people of the rank and file? I don't think that's true anymore as a young conservative. And I think we need to see what's really happened in that agency. And the other part of it is understanding how much surveillance of the conservative world there really is. I think there's much more than we think, and I think it's something that we might even find out that there are conservative influencers and commentators who are part of it. And those people need to be kicked out because it is a tale of two Americas, the conservative and liberal side. And this is why people like Tulsi are struggling, because we have become a tribal world and a tribal country, and that's okay. But the tribe is not racial. It's based on ideologies and sanity.
No, that's very true. So you believe, like I do, that there needs to be some kind of investigation to open up some of these worms and take the scab off. To get to the bottom of it. Yeah, I don't know if you heard tonight, but that David Wise came out, the special counsel that was investigating Hunter, and he sort of ripped Joe another backside, and Joe sort of hit back, but David Wise was basically saying that Hunter basically screwed the government out of taxes on $1.4 million. This ain't some minor accounting error. I mean, that's a lot of money, Mac. If me and you was to do that, we'd be talking behind bars tonight. I wouldn't be talking to you by cell phone. I'd be putting a quarter in a payphone and having the McFiles in San Quentin.
And I think that one of the problems we have is that Hunter Biden has spent his entire adult life being horrible. And someone I was speaking to today made this point. He's not a child. You always hear the president's son.
That's right.
And when you hear that, you think of like Barron, who's 18. Or you think, like a 20-year-old. This man is in his 50s. He is over 50. He's not the president's little boy. He's a criminal who's crazy and does bad things and is very, very cruel to women. And as a child, he won't acknowledge. This is not a good person. He's not the president's broken son. And I think Joe Biden has coasted off of his family tragedies for a very long time. He has created this persona of being his grandfather. And I warned in 2020 during that race that there was a nostalgic danger around Joe Biden for the Obama days, for this nice, grandfatherly figure that has never existed. He's been a mean bully since the 70s in the Senate. But he has created this persona. And when he pardoned Hunter, he said, I hope you all understand. And he tried to make it a fatherly thing. The man's a criminal who is not a good person and has committed crimes in various categories.
Absolutely.
And I think in general, if Don Jr., well, I'm not a huge fan of, but if Don Jr. had done this, can you imagine? That man would be in like Guantanamo Bay. He would be tortured for his crimes of tax avoidance. That's what would happen. And I don't understand why we pretend like Hunter Biden is a little tragic boy. I'm very sorry he had tragedies happen to him. It doesn't mean you get to enrich yourself off your father's political position for the next 40 years.
I'll agree with you. I will agree with you totally. What did you think what do you think of the classlessness of Kamala Harris not basically doing the thing that every vice president does and having the new vice president come to the quarters, give her mature? I thought that was classless. And then Michelle Obama, who is the epitome of classlessness, she missed Jimmy Carter's funeral, but now she's not coming to Trump's inauguration, which I don't think nobody's going to miss her. But it is decorum, Magdalene, and it speaks to this. And I think these things, if Kamala and Michelle are thinking that they're going to waltz into that White House in 28 acting like this, they're full of crap. Because I think people will remember this stuff, and they should. Because this is classlessness that the Dems, I don't know how tone deaf the Democrat Party can get. Look, when Bill Maher, who is a raging liberal, I mean, we're talking on a scale of 1 to 10, he's a 20 when it comes to liberalism. When he's out there warning them that they're going to go the way of the Whigs in the 1800s, which basically was a party that was opposing Lincoln, and they just went away because they became irrelevant, the Dems are on the brink of that right now. And if they don't stop this kind of stuff, the country's going to get so sick and tired of it that the only thing they're going to have is an NBC Christmas party every year where 20 of them get together and reminisce about the good old days when all they did was trash Trump on MSNBC. Because there will not be a political force in this country anymore. That's how I feel.
No, they won't be. And I think that one of the problems that Democrats have now is this idea that they lost because of Kamala Harris. They lost because their party's a lunatic farm of crazy DEI policies.
That's it.
And I think Michelle Obama, let's say she's just not coming because she hates Donald Trump. At least she's sticking to what she's always said. I find it very frustrating when I see Barack Obama giggling with Donald Trump. If Trump wants to do that, that's his right. He's won and destroyed all of their political legacies. But for Obama to giggle with the man he called Hitler is ridiculous. At least Michelle Obama is sticking with her position.
Well, that's true.
There's some dignity in that. There's some dignity in that. And, at least when Hillary Clinton doesn't speak to Donald Trump, she's sticking with her position. But this situation where with Kamala Harris and J.D. Vance, she hates J.D. Vance. I mean, he is the opposite of everything that woman stands for. And I think it's always baffling to liberal women why conservative women are happy to push conservative policies and philosophies like J.D. Vance's wife, who is a true conservative. I think the reason why she probably hasn't invited J.D. Vance is because, first of all, he's going to be a vice president that matters for something other than spending $1 billion and losing a race. He'll be a vice president that affects change. He'll probably be sent around the world. I don't imagine that Donald Trump at this age and with this much to do will do a lot of international travel outside of big trips. So J.D. Vance could be utilized very much like Nixon was utilized by Ike in those terms to travel the world and convey a conservative message. And he has a very competent wife. Pat Nixon was the most admired woman in the world until the liberals erased her from public remembrance. So I think the Vance is going to be remembered, and that's something that tortures Kamala Harris.
What do you think? We had a question in the chat last night about her future. I think it was Appy Girl, and she asked, "Do you think that she, where does she go from here?" And and she asked the question, "Do you think she'll go into obscurity?" I don't believe she's going anywhere, but her options are getting less and less, Magdalene, because I just don't see Californians with their arms wide open saying, "Come on back home, native daughter, and run our state," because I think these fires have changed the landscape of California more than just the houses being burnt to the ground. I think there's a new wave that's about to be unleashed on California, and these liberal leaders are gone. And Kamala Harris, did you hear what she insultingly told the California people tonight? She said, "Be patient." And then Joe Biden, he insults him even more with the $771 check. That's almost like blood money. It's almost like he did to the North Carolinians. That was an insult. And I think that when she did that, that was one of the things that I think sealed her doom back this fall. When they did that to the North Carolinian people, the country saw that. It wasn't just the North Carolinians that got insulted. I think we all got insulted by it. And we realized what kind of government we had over us. And they're doing it tonight. But her comment to the Californians that have lost multi-million-dollar homes, just be patient. Just be patient. No big deal. Your house just burnt down. We're not going to be there anytime soon. Just be patient. We'll get to you in 10 years. And then she is acting like she wants to go be governor of California. Don't count on it. But where do you think she goes from here? That's wasn't a bad question, really.
Well, prior to the fires, I thought she'd run for governor of California and win. But post-fires, I think that the people of California will elect a Democrat, but they'll elect a Democrat who lives in reality. Much like Eric Adams, I believe that's the name of the mayor of New York, when he was running against real crazy people on the Democrat side, and he was picked because the people of New York still wanted someone who lived in reality. I think that's where we're going with the trend. We shouldn't think that we can get Republicans elected in these states, but let's encourage Democrats who are moderate and have an idea of what's going on in the world to run. If the Democrat Party becomes less insane and less dangerous, that's a good thing. If they self-neutralize, that only helps us. So if they can do that, I think it will be helpful to them. And I think Kamala Harris's political future is really in tatters. She's a strange case because she's never really done anything. When it comes to politics, she won in a safe Democrat state. She was picked out as a rule-out candidate for vice president. The 2020 race, to say the least, was odd, and she lost this chance, and she never had to go through a primary process to become a nominee for president. She's never really been through the political ringer, and I think that's something that's going to hurt her. I don't really see a future for her. She's also not beloved. Let's think back to that race in 2024. She had to pull out celebrities every 5 minutes. There was a celebrity endorsement. She has no people who are truly dedicated to her who know how to win. And in general, they tried to model her after Barack Obama. And just a side note, I think somebody like Pete Buttigieg, for all of his other faults and the fact that I think he's been one of the worst cabinet secretaries in modern history, he has much more appeal than Kamala Harris does. At least he can string a sentence together.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Well, and I got news for her. She's not going to be the president of 28. Neither is Gavin Newsom. I think doing this stuff, they just don't get it, Macklin. They're tone deaf. They don't get it. And I think you said it a while ago. The whole party's tone deaf. Jason Miller says she'll probably wind up as a law professor at Berkeley. I don't doubt that. Hey, kid, listen, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, and this is going to be one of many shows you're going to be doing with me this year, and I've got some projects I'm going to run by you, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to wrap us up. Final thoughts. I'm so proud of you. I just can't put into words how grateful I am that you're part of this network and your family, and anything you ever need, we're right here. And you're going to play a big role in the future of the McFiles going down the pike. Because some reason the host, I don't know who he is, but he's just not a young chicken anymore. And, we need some young whippersnapper blood in here. But listen, I'm grateful for you. And you did a great job tonight, as always. Interesting. I look at that chat and that audience, and you connect with these folks. And I appreciate you. And you made some great points tonight. And I always learn something from you listening to you. But final thoughts, you got 5 minutes. Wrap us up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation hearing is going to be very interesting to watch, because Republicans in the last 2 years, really since that disastrous 2022 midterms night that you and I covered in horror, have become quite tribal and protective. And I think back to when Amy Coney Barrett was nominated for the Supreme Court, Republicans rallied around in a way that was admirable. And that's what I see happening with Republican nominees. And it's interesting that the two people we discuss, RFK Jr. and Tulsi, are the two Democrats nominated. It doesn't change the fact that there are Democrats. They are diametrically opposed to many of the things Republicans believe. So if they don't get confirmed, or if only one of them gets confirmed, I think at least one will, don't view it as a Trump loss. He nominated Democrats and their own people abandoned them, and Republicans didn't feel indebted to them because they shouldn't. So I think if we see any sort of nomination failure, it will be on that side. Pete Hegseth stands a pretty good chance with Joni Ernst voting for him or saying she will vote for him. If Pete Hegseth doesn't get through, though, that would be a loss for Donald Trump. But again, it's recoverable. Pete is a wild card. The positions that I think are the most important in some ways, other than Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of State, good picks, solid picks, and Marco Rubio especially is something Democrats can look at and say, I can get on board and get some credit for being bipartisan, because they know that he's a good, competent guy.
Well, Ted Cruz loved him. I mean, Ted Cruz said tonight, and Ted Cruz it's not like him and Trump are lunch buddies, but he told TV tonight, he said, all of Trump's picks have been jam up, and he said, I do not have a problem with any of them. And that's saying a lot coming from Ted Cruz. Listen, Magdalene, thank you, dear. I'll be in touch with you very soon. And appreciate you, hon. And be safe. And may the Lord be with you. And we'll be talking soon. And your Godfather's proud of you. I want you to know that. And we're thankful for you, okay? And I'm going to let you go and say goodnight to these folks. God bless, friend. Thank you, Magdalene.
Thank you.
Magdalene Rose, everybody. Put some fire in that house. We are grateful for her. And we're grateful for you. And I've not been able to play this tonight, except for right now. I didn't want to embarrass Magdalene, but it's elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary, my dear Watson. And Jason Miller says they're petulant children. That's the truth. That's the truth. I mean, the Democrats did nothing but show their you-know-whats this afternoon. I've never seen nothing more despicable than watching some of these Dems talk to Pete Hegseth the way they did. I'm telling you, I've got a 5-year-old going on 6 grandson that has more manners. I got a 3-year-old, and he's mean as a snake. I love Ezra, but he's just mean as a snake. I mean, he's a 3-year-old. You heard of the terrible 2s and 3s? Well, I've got a 3-year-old grandson that's going through that. And he's sweet as can be, but you want to beat his butt 1 minute and hug and kiss him the next. I mean, it's just a 3-year-old. But he's got more manners, and he's got more common sense than these freaking Dems did today, the way they did this. And I'll say it again tonight, folks. We got good people in this country that we could have a change at the top if we really wanted it. But who wants to be put through this mess? I salute these people that are going to go on that Senate committee floor and take this heat, because Hegsteth is not going to be the only one that's going to go through this. They're going to do the same thing to Rubio. Definitely going to do it to Patel, Definitely going to do it to RFK. They're going to do it to Tulsi, but I don't even, Tulsi's, I don't care about Tulsi one way or the other. They're going to do it to Pam Bondi. I think the women on that panel are going to have a harder time doing it to her because she's a woman. And it's going to be a little bit hard to play the sexist card with a woman about a woman. So we'll see how that goes. But they'll find something to complain about Pam Bondi about. But what was so disgusting today, I don't care. I wouldn't have cared if they asked Pete Hegsteth about policy. I think a cabinet position, everything is fair game when it comes to the policies that he would institute if he's confirmed as the head of the Department of Defense. I think that is fair game. But throwing up his past, throwing up allegations that are baseless, hearsay, gossip, and let me just say this, I need to say this for the first time in 2025, hearsay and gossip, folks, is not fact. What you think you've heard somebody say about somebody else is not fact. And again, the whole internet world, that's all it's become, is one big slander box, and the world's become that, our country's become that, and that's why good people just don't get into this arena. I think back to Brett Kavanaugh, and I heard Lawrence, the young man on Fox, this morning talk about that the days of Kavanaugh are done, and I don't agree with that totally. I think that the same slander machine that almost derailed Brett Kavanaugh is still alive and well in that Senate and in that House. And I just, it's sad to me that our country has reached this place, that your past has no statute of limitations. And people that dig up other people's dirt, they themselves are dirty. And they themselves are disgusting. And as I was sitting there watching Tim Kaine tonight, I asked the Lord, I said, I pray that whatever he's doing, that it's returned to his head. I pray that you return the same kind of exposure and the same kind of slander that he's doing to Pete. Let his past and let his dirt and let the things that he's been doing be revealed to the country. And they will be. You don't judge others, because it's not just the judgment that's coming on you, it's the same judgment. It's the same judgment. It's the same judgment. Got a few videos I want to play for you. Speaking of Mr. Hegsteth, I thought he did a great job tonight. I'm going to take your questions here in a minute, so just bear with me. But I want to show you a couple of videos. And this is him with, who is this with? This is Tommy Tuberville today. I have to tell you, I don't live in Alabama, even though I spend a lot more time in Alabama now with my beautiful wife than I used to. But Tommy Tuberville is the senator from Alabama. And I like Tommy. And I think he gave Pete the floor, and Tommy defended him tonight very well. And my hat is off to Tommy Tuberville. And roll the tape, because Pete said this about the military, and I think this sums it up as good as anything. Roll the tape.
Loading. What are you going to do about that?
Senator, we're going to address that. We won World War II with 7 four-star generals. Today we have 44 four-star generals. There's an inverse relationship between the size of staffs and victory on the battlefield. We don't need more bureaucracy at the top. We need more warfighters empowered at the bottom. So it's going to be my job, working with those that we hire and those inside the administration, to identify those places where fat can be cut so it can go toward lethality.
Thank you.
And that was Pete Hegsteth and the wisdom of Pete. This is him with Catherine. This is not the video, but this is a picture. This is Morano, the moron from Hawaii. This kind of crap that Pete Hegsteth had to put up with all day today. This is why he gets Man of the Year honors in my book. Roll the tape.
Or regularly being drunk at work, including by people who worked with you at Fox News. Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCM?
Let me stop that. I don't know if y'all know this or not. Did you hear what this individual said? Do you know that you're not supposed to be drunk at work? Do you realize that there's a bar in Congress? Nancy Pelosi put a bar in. You get any kind of pill, any kind of weed, any kind of alcohol you want. No wonder we got the House and Senate in such a mess. They're half drunks anyway that show up for work. Now, what she's alluding to is that there was an anonymous source from NBC that didn't like Pete, and they put a story out here about a year ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe 6 months ago, that he was showing up for work at Fox drunk. Yeah, I ran into Pete at CPAC. I've seen him at a distance. I've heard him talk in person. For those of you that don't know, him and his wife, they gave their heart to the Lord Jesus, here, I think, within the last 6 months. And he has probably given one of the most beautiful testimonies I've ever heard a man give. I got up this morning, I was watching the TV, and I looked at him, and I heard Ansley Earhart talk about his experience with the Lord. And he's not ashamed of it. He, even in his opening statement today, gave Jesus credit. He thanked the Lord Jesus for him being in this position. And I prayed this morning, and as I was praying, I felt the Spirit of God come into my house. I started weeping. I did, literally on the sofa. And I looked into that camera, and I said, young man, I said, I pray that God puts a hedge of protection around you today. And thank you for being a light. Thank you for giving a testimony of your faith. And he said that 2 J's saved him, Jennifer and Jesus, Jennifer being his wife. And yes, he's had some past failures in his marriages. He's had some past indiscretions. He's had some past things like all of us have. But he put him under the blood. He asked the Lord to forgive him. And in my book, that's all that matters. I'm not his judge. And if the Lord forgives him, it's under the blood. It's not my job to go digging in the blood of Jesus to dig up Pete Hegseth's past. But these jackanapes right here, that's all they do. That's all they did today. And it was absolutely despicable. And I'm going to tell you something. These people better be careful what they're doing. They had better be very careful of how they're handling this situation. They do not realize they're treading with fire. But the Lord gave him strength today. I really believe the Holy Spirit was with Pete Hegsteth. He probably, as a young Christian, probably didn't even realize what was going on. Maybe he did. But I'm going to tell you something. He held his ground against this onslaught. But that's what she's referring to. I don't even want to play the rest of this crap. But he dealt with that all day long. I wish I'd have had the Tim Kaine video to show you how despicable that was. It was unbelievable. This is, who is this right here? I had another one. Somebody did this. This is pretty cool. Those of you that have seen A Few Good Men, you'll understand this. Roll the tape.
You can't handle the truth! Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You?
No, that's who was handling our things with guns. By the way, I've got a couple of images to show you about Mr. Levine. Jack Reed, the complete waste of air in the Senate, was one of the ones trashing Pete's past. Asked him a question about what's a jagoff, and Pete was trying to have a decorum and explained that it was really not necessary to explain that people in the military world knew exactly what it was, and he did too. He was trying to be decorum, and Jack just kept pressing him. Well, by the way, he said that Hegsteth isn't qualified because he couldn't give a full answer about that. Well, this is who Jack Reed voted to confirm for the same Department of Health in the Biden administration. So you tell me who's qualified and who ain't. Just a thought. Just a thought. Somebody did this today. This is pretty funny. Elon Musk put it out there. He said, James Wood said Afghanistan was quieter than this. This is again, stuff that Hegsteth put it with all day today.
Veterans organizations that will help our veterans get every damn thing that they deserve because they signed on the dotted line.
I'm going to say something that's going to get me in a lot of trouble. I'm going to go ahead and figure this out. Might as well pucker up because this is going to get me in a lot of trouble. This is why women don't need to be in Senate leadership. This is why men need to be in that role right there. You don't have to like me for saying that. This is why women do not need to be leading our country in this manner. Roll the tape again. And McDonald, you're just sexist. Yep. Okay. Whatever. Whatever. They don't even know whether this is a man or a woman. But anyway.
Elementary, my dear
It's elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary. This is Tom Cotton today defending. By the way, this is his Pete Hegsteth's comment about Israel. The Dems were upset he said this. The anti-Semites were upset he said this. The Jew haters were upset he said this. Chris McDonald salutes him for saying this. This is how I feel. And Pete Hegsteth said it. He would get my vote on this alone. Roll the tape.
Big audience here. Many of them seem to be patriotic supporters of you, Mr. Hegseth. Some of them seem to be liberal critics of you. I would note that it's only the liberal critics that have disrupted this hearing. As was my custom during the Biden administration, I want to give you a chance to respond to what they said about you. I think the first one accused you of being a Christian Zionist. I'm not really sure why that is a bad thing. I'm a Christian. I'm a Zionist. Zionism is that.
Let me stop. I'm gonna keep the mic on. It'll be a little vibrating, but that's easy. If I don't, I'll accidentally mute myself. So I'm gonna keep the mic on and this going at the same time. So pardon the little echo you hear. I'm a Christian Zionist too, folks. It's not a bad thing. All Zionism is people that believe Israel has a right to that land and Israel has a role in the plan of God. These damnable heretics and these damnable liars out there that hate Israel and these Stu Peter types and all these anti-Semites on X and these prophets that have no courage to stand up for the Jewish people and these teachers that have no courage, these pastors, these churches, and all of these religious voices that make Israel out to be the great Satan of the world, they turn Zionism into a bad term. God looks at it pretty much very favorably. Zion's only mentioned about 700 or 800 times in the Bible, so that should tell me that if Zion is mentioning that, then God's a Zionist too. But what Tom Cotton is about to ask Pete is, what do you think Israel has a right to do as it comes to Hamas? Something that religious voices can't even answer. That so-called spiritual giants have a hard time answering. And YouTube prophets have a hard time answering. And YouTube celebrities have a hard time answering. Roll the tape. Roll the tape.
People deserve a homeland in the ancient Holy Land where they've lived since the dawn of history. Do you consider yourself a Christian Zionist?
Senator, I'm a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel and its existential defense, and the way America comes alongside them is their great ally.
Thank you. Because another protester, and I think this one was a member of Code Pink, which, by the way, is a Chinese Communist front group these days, said that you support Israel's war in Gaza. I support Israel's existential war in Gaza. I assume, like me and President Trump, you support that war as well, don't you?
Senator, I do. I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas.
And
bingo! Bingo!
Elementary, my dear Watson.
It's elementary, my dear Watson. I support Israel destroying every single Hamas terrorist. What part of that do we not understand? Do I need to get a crayon out and draw it for you anti-Semites? Do I need to get a crayon out and draw it for the Jew haters and Israel haters out there? That's who Israel's enemies are tonight. Let me tell you this, folks. Israel's enemies are our enemies. I don't know what part of this bunch, this anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic bunch in the church does not get that Israel's enemies are our enemies. They hate us worse than they hate her. Oh, they hate Israel, but they hate us too. And if they could do to us what they did to Israel, they'd do it. They're not going to do it with Trump, because he's already put Hamas on notice. You better get our hostages home in another 7 days. Or I'll put it like this. You're not going to be able to spell the word Hamas, because you're going to be Nomos. Y'all remember Roberto Raban when he was getting the blank beat out of him? I can't remember who that was. He was fighting that night. He gave up like 3 minutes into the fight. He said, "No mas, no mas, no mas." Let me tell you something, Hamas. You got 5 days to get our hostages back. And by the way, I'm not happy with the hostage deal that Israel's signing with them tonight. She's being pressured to do it. And it's sad. I got something to show you about that. And I think it's Eli. Let me get my glasses on because I can't see what I'm doing tonight. And I need to. We're almost done with this tonight. But this right here, I think this is it. I need to. That's not it. Maybe this is it right here. If it's not, nope, that's it. That's not it. Let me try. But there, Eli talked about this deal that the Israelis are being pressured into tonight to basically agree with Hamas, and it's going to backfire. And if I'm Benjamin Netanyahu, I do not do this. I just don't do it. But I'll deal with that more Thursday night. Because it's coming down to cases. By the way, if you want to see what the Department of Defense, this bunch is telling you how disqualified Pete Hegsteth is, and he's a wife beater, a womanizer, rapist, a drunk. He has never done an audit. The Pentagon has failed the last 7 audits. They complain. Warren tonight had her lunch handed to her. She was talking some weird, freaky thing about generals, and Pete Hegsteth says, Warren, I'm not a general. But let me show you your Department of Defense that's been in power for the last freaking 4 years. And of course, I know nothing bad would ever happen with this kind of leadership over us in the Department of Defense. So, you liberals that are listening to me tonight, if this is what you think is normal leadership, I'll take Pete Hegsteth any day and 50,000 times on Sunday. This should be displayed around the Capitol today for the hearings. That's my dear friend Juanita Broderick. That's what if I'd have been Pete. Because see, they don't. Chris would just be. Even if I went up in smoke, I'd at least make the hearings funny. I wouldn't have been as gracious as Pete Hegsteth. I would have had some kind of hat on. I'd have done something. I'd have done something crazy. I'd have had my whole family disown me. I'd have probably held a poster up like that when Jack Reed was telling me that I'm not qualified enough. And they were complaining about his tattoo. And by the way, that tattoo is a Jerusalem cross, and we're talking about that Thursday night. And the same figure, the same symbol was on Jimmy Carter's program at his funeral. So it's okay for the Dem president to have it on his program. It's not a bad thing, but Pete's got a tattoo with that to recognize his faith. All of a sudden it becomes a symbol of hate. But these are the people that were running your country and my country for 4 years as the Department of Defense. So if Mickey Mouse would have invaded the Americans, that's what our defense would have been. Mickey Mouse could have invaded us and overtaken us with this bunch. Which, again, that's Lloyd Johnson down there. That's who Magdalene was talking about on the bottom left down there. That's Mr. Levine or Miss Levine or whatever the blank he is or she is. I don't even know what he is at this point. Don't really care. I'm glad that in 6 days this nightmare is gone. And that flag right there, folks, they were required, the military was required, and I'm going to go ahead and say something that's going to get me in trouble tonight. The military is no place for a transgender male. The military is no place for those that are not men. I'm sorry. You don't have to like that. You ain't got to agree with it. You say that's discriminatory. Whatever you want to say. Say it. Pete Hegsteth. There's a new sheriff in town. It's going to be about qualification. It ain't going to be whether you can't tell what's in between your legs or not. It ain't going to be whether you're wearing a mask that looks like something out of a freaking Independence Day sequel. For those of you who don't know what Independence Day is, it's about aliens. That's the clown show that was running our Department of Defense. I think we're in good hands with Pete Hegsteth.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
Just a suggestion. It's elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary, my dear Watson. I'm not sure if this is my video, Jeannie, but I think this is the one.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
For the first time tonight, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? By the way, a couple more things. We're almost done. It's 10:30, and I got to get out of here. This is Kash Patel today. I sure hope what he's saying and Pam Bondi are saying they're going to do. Watch this. Roll the tape.
I mean, this is so unprecedented. It's just amazing that he would say that.
It's shockingly unconstitutional, Trace. It's great to be with you, and I'm here to announce on your show a measure that I'm working with Congress that should be Congress's bread and butter. And I'm calling for the subpoenas to be issued to Judge Merchant's daughter's company, who made $15+ million from the illicit information pouring out of her father's courtroom. I want to know the bank records, because money doesn't lie. Yep. I want to know how deep it is and how much of it went to the family and how much of it is going to the family after this false conviction. And then we need to investigate the FEC actual violations that this judge and his family conducted, because he should never have been overseeing this trial to begin with, because of the illicit campaign money that was flowing through there, and the unconstitutional due process violations are only the beginning. So America is calling for accountability of our judicial system, and Congress is the only lever that has it, and I'm hoping for 1 or 2 brave members of Congress that I'm talking to issue those subpoenas ASAP.
That's the future head of the FBI. Go Cash. Here's more Pete Hegsteth real quick.
Because everybody in this room knows, if you're a rifleman and you lose your rifle, they're throwing the book at you. Mm-hmm. But if you're a general who loses a war, you get a promotion. That's not going to happen in Donald Trump's Pentagon. There will be real standards.
Come on, Pete.
For success.
Come on, Pete.
Everyone from the top, from the most senior general to the most lowly private, will ensure that they're treated fairly, men and women, inside that system.
Bingo! Bingo! Here's his beatdown of Pocahontas.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one.
They were laughing at her. You just gotta love Pete Hegsteth. You just gotta love him.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
It's elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary, my dear Watson. I just wish he would have had this with him today.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I'd have been there. That's what I've been saying all day. That's what I've been... One other couple more videos. I'm gonna let you go here. We'll talk with you more Thursday night. We're gonna get your comments.
The weak strategic leadership projected by the
volume ain't the best on this.
That have been running the White House for 4 years. I stand corrected. Lloyd Austin, travesty. Former chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, forget about it. Should be recalled onto active duty and court-martialed for what they did in Afghanistan. Pete Hegsteth.
This is what Pete was really dealing with. Y'all remember the cat? This, I don't know who makes this stuff up, but boy, this is good stuff right here. This is about what it was like today. This was what it was about like today. There's Gillibrand. She was all fired up about jack crap nothing today, too. She's a piece of work. I salute Pete Hegsteth tonight. Pete, if you're listening to me, buddy, come on the show. I'll give you 3 hours. Say whatever you want to say. I know you can't now, but we wish you would. If I run into you again next time, I'm going to get my picture with you. He was busy that day. I saw him at CPAC. But that's what it was like today. That was what it was like today. All righty. A couple of other things here. I'm not sure who this is. I'll play this one. I can't remember what this one is.
Getting some advice from my second in command.
Yeah, but I'm just making a point, because there's a lot about qualifications, and I think it's so hypocritical of
Republicans
senators,
defending
on the
him.
other side of the aisle, be talking about his qualifications, not going to lead the secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it, and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army Forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon.
Come on, Mike.
But I guess that's
Mark.
okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or well, I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night?
All of them.
Have
They're
any
laughing.
of you guys asked them to step down and
Nope.
resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step
That's
down?
a piece of crap on the right,
No.
right there. Complete
But it's
piece
for
of crap.
show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye.
Come on, buddy.
We've
Come
all
on,
made
Mark.
mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too. I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why. But just like our Lord and Savior forgave me, my wife's had to forgive me more than once too, and I'm sure you've had to forgive him too. And so thank you. So
That's a class act. Now, that's what class looks like. That picture of Tim Kaine is what a turtle looks like. It's what a turtle looks like. A couple more videos.
Welcome to the Capitol, everybody. Good
By
afternoon.
the way, let
This
me
is
preface this video. We're going to talk about this Thursday night. Mike Johnson, if you're listening tonight, tip of the hat, navigated a bill tonight. There will be no more, and I'm sure President Trump will sign it. It should pass the Senate. There will not be any more of Joella, who's really Joe, playing sports with Susie. Because Joe can't win in men's sports, so he's going to act like a woman with the House tonight, with some guts, passed the act or passed a law, or a bill that's going to head the law, that there ain't going to be none of this men and women's sports anymore, and the federal government is going to step in and stop it.
great day for women in America. House, yes, wait, that's an applause line. House Republicans have yet again stood up for women. This is a commitment that we have made because it comports with what is right and what is common sense. We know from Scripture and from nature that men are men and women are women, and men cannot become women. It's sad that we have to say that. It's a matter of biology. It's how we're made. And if we try to ignore that or to undo it, we do so at our peril and to the detriment of our daughters. Across the country, female athletes like Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon and Peyton McNabb have had to compete head-to-head against biological men. It's just not right. Around the world, it's estimated that more than 700 female athletes have been displaced by males in their women's sporting events. And that has resulted in more than 1,000 estimated medals, records, and scholarships intended for women going to men. My own daughters competed in sports as they were growing up, and I can only imagine the anger I would feel as a dad if they had their trophies stolen from them. But that's indeed what many women are facing today. And it's not just anger, it's fear. Biological men competing against women also poses a threat to the safety of our girls. It's dangerous, it's unfair, it's a rejection of reality, and it is just plain wrong. But today, the House voted to uphold common sense again. We voted to require all schools receiving federal funds to uphold the original meaning of Title IX and keep biological men out of women's sports. Last Congress, we voted on this legislation as well. We will note that not one single Democrat joined us. Today was an improvement. It's bipartisan. We had 2 Democrats join us. Yes. But it's shameful. There should have been many, many more. In fact, I would argue that every member of this body should have voted for common sense and to protect women. And for some reason, for politics, I guess, they chose not to. The American people sent a clear message in November. They want us to return to common sense, but it appears that some of our friends in the other party are ignoring that plea. This Congress, we have the power of a Republican Senate, and we will have Donald J. Trump return to the White House in less than a week. That is going to be a sea change around here, and we can't wait. And together we're making good on our campaign promises. We couldn't have done it without Greg Steube, my colleague from Florida, who's behind me here, who's been pressing this issue.
All right, he's going to just give a lot of accolades, but I want to say that men don't belong in women's sports. Wow!
Elementary, my dear Watson.
It's elementary, my dear Watson. We didn't get to half the stuff we wanted to. I got to show you one other quick thing tonight. I found it finally. This is what we're going to discuss Thursday night. This is the Twitter handle. Dr. Eli David, under heavy U.S. pressure, Israel is about to agree to a deal, releasing over 1,000 terrorists, many of them murderers, for the release of only some of the hostages by rewarding Hamas instead of eliminating it. He said we're going to bring on another October the 7th on ourselves, and I'm going to tell you, folks, we're going to talk about this Thursday night more in detail. We do not have time. We're out of time tonight. It's late. It's 10:48. All righty. Listen, you got 5 minutes. I'm sorry we didn't have more time for your questions tonight. We will take more of those. Did you enjoy the show? And good to see Amy Miller in the house tonight. Amy, good to see you, dear. Jason Miller says that Tim Kaine's the only person Hillary could find lower than her to run a campaign with. That's the truth, Jay. That's the truth, brother. It's logical to be biological. That's very true, too. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Where's Jeannie Castellanova at?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Men don't belong in women's sports. And Susan Prusky, I totally agree. Mullins nailed it to the wall, didn't he? Grammy, your question a while ago about the states, I meant to answer that question. The taxes with Hunter is federal. And now, I'm sure he probably missed some state taxes. I'm not sure if California has a state income tax. But if they do, yes, the state could go after you for state income tax, but not for federal. Federal, the feds would have to do the IRS. And he walked. He walked. Basically, he got pardoned for all that. I bet you we wouldn't get pardoned for it. And so forth. Carol, I don't know exactly when the thing changed with women in combat, but what Magdalene said tonight and what we're trying to get across is we're not sexist about women. If they want to get involved, that's fine, but the standard should not be lowered for a woman just to make a woman ready for combat. No more than it should be lowered for a woman just to be a police officer, because you start lowering the standard, people get killed. People get killed. And that's what's happening, and that's what's been happening. That's going to stop under Hegsteth. It's going to stop because we're about to get a lean, mean fighting machine, and we're going to be able to defend more than defending against Mickey Mouse. Because Mickey Mouse, with that clown show that was over us that I showed you a while ago, we could have been invaded by Panama and Greenland, which I hope Trump buys. Just to be honest with you. I hope he buys. Got a question? Say, make it quick now. Seriously, it's getting late. We'll take some more. We'll take some more questions. Great show tonight, Tim. Tim, thank you, buddy. Thank you. I think we've had a good one tonight. It's been great. Magdalene was great, wasn't she? Magdalene was great. Magdalene was great.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
See, this is what I would do if I was on that. If I was on that panel. If I was on that chair and they were interviewing me for this stuff, Chris would let it all hang out.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
That's what I'd be telling Elizabeth Warren. I'd be telling Haraji Amono and Kristen Gillibrand and all the rest of them liberal pukes, including Tim Kaine.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? But Pete showed a lot more class than Chris would have. So Pete, if you're out there tonight, friend, this is for you. And a hearty McFiles salute for making us proud. And I prayed for you this morning. And I prayed for you tonight. And I thank God for you. Because you did a good job. You did a good job. And we're going to get some more stuff on on him about what he said, because he said a lot of other good things too. All righty, I've got to leave you tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. We got a lot more stuff to do this week. Now tomorrow night, may have Outdoory at 6. Definitely the Faith Show tomorrow night. Wednesday's Faith. Now we'll do a Facebook Live tomorrow afternoon probably. We'll do a few of those this week. Thursday night, we have got, we may have Professor Nick Giordano with us to talk about some of the legal ins and outs. James Akers, for sure, on the phone. We may get Brad Johnson on Thursday night. We'll be in D.C. starting Monday. We're going to be there for the inauguration. We're going to be there for the Right to Life March next week. Hopefully things will get back to normal on the 25th. That's on a Monday night. Or 27th, I should say. That's on a Monday. And we're going to be coming to Florida sometime in February for a conference. We're working on the dates. I do want to say something. This book came in today. You see that? They're going to resize this, but we got our book in, and I'm really excited about this book. It's called A Departing from the Faith. Be with us tomorrow night. We're going to tell you about this more. But boy, that's a sharp-looking cover. You like that? I really like that. Good-looking guy on the back too. I don't know who that is. I have to get my glasses out. Oh goodness gracious! Woo! Goodness gracious! Good-looking dude.
Elementary, my
It's
dear.
elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary. My dear Watson. Jason, I'll be putting an address out Sunday where I'll be. Not going to do it right now because all the crazies, I don't want the crazies to know about it, but I would love to meet you and your wife, Jason Rankin. Good to hope y'all can come out. Anybody wants to come join us in D.C. and stay around for the Right to Life March, we'd love to have a McFile contingent. It'd be great to have you. And we don't know what the hotel will hold in the space, but if we can get them to give us a little space, we'll have a little time of fellowship there and talk and fellowship with each other. But yeah, we'd love to see you guys. Come on up. It's going to be cold. Bring your coats. That's all I got to say. And so forth. I know we've been a little late tonight. I want to thank Magdalene Rose for being with us tonight. I'm so grateful to have all of you. I'm proud of you. We love you guys. We're grateful for you. And so forth. And she, Susan, she does exceed in wisdom for her young age. She sure does. And you know, Mary, I'm with you. I hope Pete stops the plans to draft women to fight in wars. That's not where they belong. That is not, I would not want my wife. I would not want my daughter. I don't have a daughter, but if I did, I would not want my daughter fighting. My granddaughters, I would not want my granddaughters fighting on the front lines of a war. That's not where, that's for men. And just a little Bible nugget. Israel didn't have women in the army. God never ordained women to serve in the military under the economy of Israel. Even though Deborah was a warrior, that was a unique situation with the judgeship. But the majority of the leadership of Israel was always men. The majority of it, not all. And again, folks, we're not saying this to be sexist or mean-spirited to women. But it's this upside-down, topsy-turvy world we live in right now. And I just think it's time that it gets corrected. Men need to start being men. That's the bottom line. That's really what I'm trying to say. I'm more gearing this to the men than I am even the women. The men have got to take control of this country again and be men and lead. That's what God's ordained us to do. In all facets of society. In all facets of society. And I know that's hard to do these days in this atmosphere, but it's got to start somewhere. Got to start somewhere. That's all I'm saying. And we love you, ladies. Y'all know that. We appreciate you. And just know that we're on your side. We're on your side. Anyway, Gail, probably somewhere in Jacksonville right now. We'll give you details when we get the details. We're not quite got them worked out yet. We're going to come to Central Florida hopefully soon, too. We're going to try to deal the south in the wintertime, and then we'll start going north as we get into the spring. Amy Miller has told me, you're not coming up here in the winter because we've got blizzards and 10 feet of snow in South Dakota. She said pretty much by April all the snow's gone, but they've had snow up there as late as April, so we got to sort of navigate the snowstorms and the tornadoes in the Midwest in the spring and the snowstorms in the north in the winter. Listen, God bless you. God bless your families. I wish I had more time with you tonight. We'll be back tomorrow in the morning, tomorrow night faith, Thursday night. Please be with us Friday night, maybe, but definitely this week. And then bear with us next week. We'll be coming to you from D.C. We'll be right here. And we'll have a good time with you from D.C. We're grateful for you. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, put some fire in that house. Thank you all for the donations. If you feel led to throw a few shekels our way for the trip, it will be much appreciated. And we thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you all for your love and support of the network. And I'll see you back here tomorrow night. It was a great night of faith. We're going to talk about Laodicea again tomorrow night. Going to be interesting stuff. And maybe Outdoor West at 6. We'll see how she's feeling tomorrow to do that. And we got a lot of great guests coming in February, okay? God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. Our continued prayers for the people in California tonight and our nation. President Trump and Pete Hegsteth, this one's for you, brother. This one's for you. You did good, man. You did good.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
It's elementary, my dear Watson. It's elementary, my dear Watson. Have a good night, everybody. See you back here tomorrow.